University of York. This is the Research Room. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Research Room with me, Janine Healy.
And me, Lucy Arthur. And today we're joined in the research room by two researchers from the ASSSIST-2 project. We've got Dr. Kerry Bell and Dr. Jane Blackwell here. So, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Kerry. I've been a researcher for around 16 years now, but for the last 10 years, my research has been mostly focused around child-centred research.
Hi, I'm Jane. I joined the York Trials Unit in November 2021, and since then I've been working on trials that focus on child mental health or education trials.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to chat all about your project, which sounds really interesting, and we've even got results to share, so that's brilliant. We're excited about that. I know we don't usually get results, do we? But yeah, very, very excited about that. So just to kind of get started then, could you just tell us the full name of your project? If you know it, if you can remember it.
So our project is called Autism Spectrum Social Stories in School Trial 2, and it's called Trial number 2 because we also did a feasibility trial which was called ASSIST. So the acronym for the trial is ASSIST-2.
Oh, right.
And it's ASSIST with 3 S's.
It is.
ASSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSS we have this little. Is it a competition? I don't know.
Yeah, we're trying to decide who has the best acronym.
Yeah,
or short name. They're not all acronyms.
Short names, yes.
Yeah. What do you think? ASSIST 2.
It has all the words, doesn't it, on the long name? Yeah. So probably I'd give it. I've got to give it a rating, haven't I?
Yeah, give it a rating out of 10.
Creeping up 8.
8?
That's not bad.
I think that's the highest.
It says ASSIST. It's also like assisting autistic children.
Yeah. So it's got a word means, even though it's an extra S in it, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it makes it proper. Yeah.
I think that's the highest rating you've ever given anyone.
It is actually.
Wow.
I wish I'd have come up with it now.
I know.
I could take credit.
Oh, you could. You could just tell us. We wouldn't know.
Yeah, we wouldn't know. Yeah.
So you give it an 8. Okay. But
what would you give it?
So I do like it, ASSIST, but it does slightly bother me that there's too many S's. I'm sorry. So for me, I think it's a 7.
Yeah. Okay.
But, I still like it, ASSIST.
There was one thing you mentioned in the first one that I've just realised. You said a feasibility study. A lot of people won't know what a feasibility study is. What is a feasibility study?
So the feasibility study all feasibility studies are looking at how acceptable an intervention is and how easy it is to kind of set up and run a trial and whether it will be feasible to run a full-scale trial.
Right. So that's why you're ASSIST 2.
Very good. So it's ASSIST the sequel.
So can you describe your project in a few sentences, in a nutshell, basically?
Yes. So we were looking at evaluating a particular type of intervention called social stories, and we wanted to see whether this was helpful for children who are autistic, and to see whether this could help improve their social communication and well-being within an educational setting.
All right. So you're in schools helping kids with autism through social stories. That's the thing you're testing.
Right,
the social story. So can you tell us a bit about why you're doing the project and what the kind of problem that you were trying to solve with this is?
Yes. So the original chief investigator on this project was a child and adolescent, a consultant psychiatrist who had a lot of experience working with families of autistic children and supporting them. And his clinical experience showed him that there was a real gap in the sort of support that autistic children receive in an educational setting. And one type of intervention that is child-friendly and positive is this social stories. And we know that social stories, which are basically a simple book that provides social information to children to help guide them with something they might be finding difficult with, are used throughout educational settings without much research base to show if they work or not. So the idea behind the project was to work with primary schools across the UK to formally evaluate a particular type of social story, which I can tell you a little bit about later,
Yeah.
to see if this is beneficial. And then if it is found to be beneficial, we would be able to provide advice and training to wider schools.
So it's something that's already used in schools, but you want to know if it really works.
Yeah, and also we were testing a very particular type of social stories, which is different to some of the generic social stories that you can find online. So I'll go into what a social story is.
Yeah, tell us what a social story
is. Yeah, this is the time.
Yes. So the intervention we were looking at was designed by a teacher and psychologist called Carol Gray. And her social stories are trademarked. So they have a capital S on social and a capital S on stories.
Oh.
And they've got very set criteria and rules for what would class as a Carol Gray social story.
Right.
And the idea behind these type of social stories is that they're always child-friendly, positive. They don't include any negative language. They're not used as a tool to tell off a child if they've done something that we wouldn't want them to do. They're used as a mechanism to support the child in an environment that they might be struggling with. So the Carol Gray criteria would tell you how to write the social story. So it would be like any story and have a beginning, a middle and an end. It would gently guide a child to understand a social situation. For example, if in school they're struggling to tell their teacher how they feel or they're having emotional upset, the story would let them know that other people also find it difficult in school sometimes. It's okay to feel sad sometimes, and gently coach them to know that it's okay to go up to your teacher and tell them how you're feeling. And if they manage to achieve this behaviour, how it would make other people feel, and that they may get a reward if they've done this. So the idea behind the intervention is that someone who knows them very well would gather with the teacher, the parent, and sometimes the child to think about the issue the child's facing, unpick what's going on for the child, see if there's any social information that they're missing, and then figure out together how to write this social story that will best support the child. And we found, Kerry will talk about the proper results later, but we found that the children generally seem to enjoy their social story because it's tailored to their level of interest, like their ability, their language understanding. It's full of pictures of things that they enjoy. So it's really personalised to that child. Yeah. So it's meant to be very positive, and it's never used as any sort of punishment. And just going back a bit, why these social stories are needed. It's important to say that, like, Kerry and I are not from a clinical background. Like, we were working on this project as researchers. But what we know is that our understanding of autism is sort of evolving over time. And we think about autistic people as having differences to non-autistic people rather than necessarily deficits. So I think in the diagnostic and statistical kind of criteria for an autism diagnosis, they do talk about deficits, but our team was very keen to see the differences rather than deficits. So things that autistic children can sometimes struggle with are social communication. So having like back and forth conversations, eye contact, talking about things that are not of their specific interest, but also they can have differences in sort of behaviours, and they can have very restrictive patterns of what they want to do. And they like routine and struggle when the routine isn't followed. Yes, so the school environment often doesn't follow a routine. Like, the staff changes, you have trips out, especially during the COVID period where this project was happening. Social stories were a mechanism to try and help prepare children for changes in routine and things like that.
Yeah. Did the kids find the school environment quite difficult? And that's obviously stressful for them and for their parents.
Absolutely. So we're looking at like our whole team, not just on the ASSSIST project, but the other research we're doing was thinking about the needs of the child. How best can we support them? How do we test interventions that are like child friendly and stuff that a child would want to participate in? Because I think historically a lot of research has taken an adult intervention and applied it to a child, and then that just doesn't work for their level of interest and, you know, getting a child to engage in the type of intervention. So, the school environment isn't always set up well for autistic children. And throughout this, we are sort of using the term autistic children, and this is sort of what's recommended by the National Autism Society, which we worked with on this project. But we know that that term isn't what suits everyone. So we've taken guidance from our representation from that organisation and our clinical colleagues as well.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of kind of the problem that you would be trying to kind of solve with the social stories, it's sort of helping kids who are finding school really hard, and obviously that is stressful for the kids, maybe the teachers and the parents as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one bit I should have mentioned is that each social story is focused on a particular goal for that child. So the goal is decided between the teacher, the parent, and sometimes the child. And then the story will be totally focused on that particular goal. And you could write multiple social stories for one child that are focused on different things. But in our research, we were sort of looking at the progress towards a particular goal that was set as part of the research project.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you say social stories, I guess, is it a physical book? Like a...
Yeah, it can be. So, they can be delivered in all sorts of different modes. So once we wrote the text just on Microsoft Word document, and then lots of settings chose to print this and read it physically with the child. And they sometimes formed it as part of a book, or other people chose to stick up different pages of the book around the room because the child didn't want to sit and listen to a book, and it allowed them to sort of move around the room. And other people delivered it on an iPad and just scrolled through a PDF of
so
it.
It's very
but
flexible.
it's a really flexible intervention, and if you did want to deliver it as part of a video type of story, it would be possible. So the idea is that you can kind of deliver it in any format that suits the child.
And am I understanding it right that it's a story about a specific sort of thing that the child is struggling with? So you could have a few different ones for different situations.
Absolutely. So you can pretty much write a social story about anything that the child might need more social information about. So it could be preparing them to go and visit their secondary school for the first time. Or I think I've got some examples here. So asking for help when I need it, telling my teachers how I feel, working on my own, and happy playtimes, because sometimes the playground environment can be quite challenging for an autistic child.
Yeah. Oh, sounds great. So if, say for an example, if the autistic child is kind of struggling for asking for help, you would write a story, and would it be like them in the story, if I got that right?
Yes, that's right.
For me, it would be Lucy does this.
Absolutely. So it would be like, my name is Lucy. I go to this primary school. My class teachers are X, Y, and Z. It would talk about your interests. It would really celebrate you as a person. And then it would start kind of narrowing down to the actual topic. So it might talk about, like, in school, we sometimes do this and sometimes do that. And then it would kind of get to the core goal of what you're looking to help the child with. And the coaching sentence would be, I will try to tell my teachers when I'm feeling sad. And we would always use the phrase I will try, because we don't want the child to fail. We don't want to say I should or I always will. It's always I will try. And then to sort of end the book, it would say, my mum and dad will be really pleased if I try to tell my teachers how I'm feeling. I may feel proud of myself. And then it might say, I will get to go to the cinema, or there'll be some sort of reward for achieving the goal.
Does it take long to do this then? Is it, to actually create the story?
It varied from the sort of experience and the confidence of the person writing the social story. As part of the research trial, Kerry and I were sort of coaching the setting staff individually in how to do this. Originally, we went out to visit schools. So prior to COVID-19, we would visit for half a day. But the first part of that session would be to deliver some training on autism. And then it would move into what is a social story and how to write one. So within 3 hours, we would pretty much have a draft of a social story, but they would also have received a lot of training on autism. After COVID-19, we moved to an online model where they watched the psychoeducation element of the training online prior to meeting Kerry and I on Zoom. And we would sit for about an hour per story and get the draft written. And then the setting staff would go away and they'd personalise the book with maybe photos of the child's classroom or anything that made it really relevant to that child. They would then send the story back to us. We would check it against the 10 Carol Gray criteria to make sure it was a Carol Gray social story. And then we would send it back to them and say, you're okay to go and deliver it now. And they would be asked to read the story 6 times over 4 weeks.
Oh, okay. And so the teacher's reading the story to the child, or they're reading it themselves, or
I guess
both. I guess
it was fine either way. So maybe towards year 5 and year 6, they might be able to read their own story. But it was always as part of a session with someone who knew the child well. We encouraged them to find a quiet space and provide like proper time to read it together and discuss it, because it was also meant to be for a vehicle for discussion between either the teaching assistant or the teacher and the child.
Yeah. Wow, it sounds really great. I want a social story.
Yes, I could do with one, yeah.
I could.
I think Kerry and I have found that it sort of changes the way you think about situations, because
I bet.
you think, what might someone be missing in terms of social information, or it does change the way you think when you're really unpicking a situation.
Yeah, I bet you're looking at things from a very
different way.
Yeah, social point of view. Have you written yourself a social story?
So the beautiful thing about social stories is it doesn't just work for children with autism. It's sort of applicable for any sort of child that might be missing some information, or might just need a bit of reinforcement for something. I think one of the recurring themes that social stories get written around is transitions, which is obviously quite common in school. You're transitioning from one class to another, and then you're transitioning from one school to another. So, all children struggle with transitions, not just neurodiverse children. This can be something that all children struggle with. So you can use social stories to prepare children for those transitions. So they do have these multiple applications that can be really important for all children, not just specific subgroups.
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing, isn't it? So if you find out whatever you're finding out about this, it can be across the whole school. So how does the project work? How are you going to figure out if social stories are effective?
Well, how did we find it out? Because
our
project has finished.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
So our project's actually finished a couple of years ago now, but the main trial paper has just come out this year. So we used a cluster randomised control trial. Mm-hmm. So many randomised control trials that are conducted within York Trials Unit are sort of standard randomised control trials where participants get randomised individually. Whereas in our trial, the cluster trial, we were randomising schools. So every child within a school would be randomised to the same condition. So in this trial, we had 2 different groups that we were looking at. So a school could either be randomised to deliver the intervention, the social stories, now, or they could be randomised to continue with what they're doing, so just treat the children as normal, but then they could receive the training and deliver the social stories at the end of the trial. So those were the 2 groups that we were looking at.
Mm-hmm. So when you say cluster randomisation, so that's, the school either gets the social stories or they just do what they're usually doing and then they can get them later. And some schools won't get the social stories until later, I guess. So randomising the school, not the individual.
Yeah. But it was really good that we sort of used this waitlist design so that all schools did have access to receive the training at some point.
Yes, because otherwise they feel like they're missing out.
Yeah, so they will get it at the end.
Yeah, and I think many schools did end up taking us up on that offer, didn't they, of receiving the training at the end of the trial.
What kind of schools do you choose? Is it junior schools or secondary schools?
So for this particular trial, we were just looking at primary schools. So the children were all between 4 and 11 years old. I think previous research, has tried looking at older children, but because of the nature of the intervention, it does sort of work better for younger children. As the children get older and they start to understand what's going on, and they're less sort of engaged with reading the story about themselves. So it does sort of tend to work better with the younger children. But we invited all schools across Yorkshire and Humber. It wasn't, we didn't target particular schools or anything like that. It was just open to all.
So how many schools did you have?
We ended up randomising 87 in the end, and that accounted for 249 children.
Okay.
But then each child had a corresponding parent or carer. They had a teacher and an interventionist. So we ended up with a fairly sort of large, rich data set with these multiple perspectives on the children, because some of the measures that we used to look at the children's sort of progress were completed by both their teacher and their parent. So we could look at those different perspectives to get a more sort of rounded picture of how the child was doing.
Yeah. So what were you measuring then? Was this kind of questionnaires, or I guess were you observing people? Or
So COVID scuppered us here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Of course. So originally there was going to be an observational element. So the plan was that we would go into some of the schools and we would watch some of the sessions being delivered and see how the children were doing sort of firsthand. But we were rumbled fairly early on with COVID, so we couldn't actually do that element of the project. Yeah, which was a real shame because we really loved when we first joined the project and we could go into the schools and we could sit with them and work with them, and you have a much better dialogue in person than you do sort of remote with all the technological issues and can you hear me? And I can't hear you.
I'm on mute.
Yeah, it's dropped out again. Yeah, it's really tricky. So we are sort of sad that we couldn't do that aspect of the project, but most of the data that we collected therefore was via questionnaires.
What kind of questions were you asking?
Well, there was quite a lot of questions. It was, as far as the trials that I've worked on, we definitely had large questionnaire booklets.
Oh, really?
So, I've worked on, I think, 24 trials in my time at YTU, and I think it was probably like the biggest booklet that I've seen. There was a lot of questions for ASSSIST.
Yeah.
So we were collecting. So the primary outcome was an instrument called the Social Responsiveness Scale 2. So this looks at sort of social skills.
Right. Okay.
And then we had another outcome measure that was sort of specifically developed for the trial, which looked at the goal that Jane was talking about earlier and how well the children were sort of meeting the goal at the sort of subsequent follow-up time points. And then there were lots of sort of standardised measures looking at social emotional health, quality of life, parental stress, attendance, things like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the main thing you were measuring, did you say, was the goal?
No, it was the social skills.
Oh, sorry, the social skills.
So it was a bit of a bone of contention there because ideally the research team would have liked the goal-based outcome measure to be the primary outcome, but the funder was very keen to have a sort of standardised instrument as the primary outcome.
So social skills. So that's what you're looking to be improved by the social stories.
I suppose you can go into what did you find?
Oh, so drum roll, you can give us some results.
What did you find?
Well, so it's a bit of a mixed bag of chips, really, because we were limited by all the impacts of COVID because we had to make such substantial changes to the trial at this sort of middle point. And then we just randomised a whole bunch of schools, and various children had just started receiving the intervention, and then suddenly, that's it. Schools are closed. We can't carry on.
Of course, the schools all closed, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
So that was really tricky. And I mean, some of the schools were fantastic. They were working so hard to continue delivering the intervention, and some of them were sort of delivering it remotely with the TA being on like a video call with the child and stuff. But for the most part, there's this whole bunch of children in our sample that were randomised to receive the intervention but never could.
Oh, yeah.
And because we analysed the data according to where they were randomised, so whether they were supposed to receive it or not, that will have an impact on our results. So despite all of these issues, we did find that there was an improvement in the social skills.
Oh, brilliant.
But this didn't reach what we call statistical significance, so we can't be certain that finding wasn't due to chance. So although it sort of looks positive, we can't be sure. We can't say, this is definitely because the children got the social stories. So
statistics, always statistics.
Always statistics.
Always
a
number.
What about the one that you fought for?
So the goal-based outcome. So we did find a statistically significant result there.
Oh, brilliant!
So we can have a little bit more confidence that finding wasn't due to chance. But because it was a secondary outcome, again, there's a bit more uncertainty there.
Okay.
But that was really, really positive.
That sounds great. So it did improve social skills, but unfortunately it wasn't statistically significant. And it also improved goal meeting of goals?
Well, it was measured in terms of the frequency that they achieved their goal.
Okay. And that increased.
Yeah.
They were more often they met their goals.
Yeah.
After having the social story.
Yeah.
So did you have any, so you had all statistical, did you have any qualitative work that went alongside it?
Yeah, so there was a bit of a process evaluation that went alongside, but it wasn't as sort of rigorous and in-depth as some of the other trials that we do in the trials unit, because quite a lot of work had been done alongside the first trial, the feasibility trial that we talked about earlier. So there were interviews with parent carers and with setting, staff within schools. And, generally people were really positive about it. They said that they liked the intervention and that the children typically liked the intervention and that they could see the improvements in the children. And many of them told us that they would like to keep using it or use it with other children. Obviously, it's not all positive. There were some teachers that told us that some of the children didn't like it. For example, they didn't like the repetition. So one of the things that autistic children can struggle with is the sort of, repetitive nature of things. And then some of the children didn't like being the star of the story. They didn't like reading this story that was about themselves.
They'd rather it was about someone else.
So even though it was sort of framed as this really sort of positive thing, and we really sort of tried to celebrate them and celebrated their strengths and their achievements, they didn't like it. They didn't like reading this story about themselves.
I can understand that, but sometimes it's nice to make a story about somebody else, about or a thing, like a object or something. I don't know. If you sort of focus on yourself too much, I can understand that. But could it be tweaked to
so this is the good thing about social stories, is that they are super flexible. And one of the sort of bits of advice that we did give to schools is that if the children are sort of unhappy with anything in the story, you can go back and change it. It wasn't, the story's written and this is it, and there's no flex. They could go back and they could change it and they could tailor it and they could work with the child and sort of figure out, what should go in there. And I think one of the key sort of things that we found from the process evaluation is that socialist stories allow teachers to sort of open complex dialogues with the child that might be otherwise difficult.
Yes.
So it allows them to have these conversations that might be tricky for them to otherwise sort of start with the child, to sort of sit them down in this space and have this conversation that might seem really serious. But when you've got this story in front of you and you're talking about this story, they sort of found that a really nice way to open that dialogue.
I can see that would work, wouldn't it?
Because
you don't have to start like, I've got something to talk about. It's more, should we read this story?
Topic. It's like, let's have a look at this story together. Let's think about this and what could we change here? And giving them the opportunity, because one of the things that the story tries to do is to give them some options of what they can do in certain situations. So it's not always the case of, if you're in this situation, you must do this specific thing. You can give them various options that they can choose from. So one of the sort of tweaks that they could make to the story after is to give the child the opportunity to say, well, actually, what I would like to do is go outside and kick a football against a wall. And that might not be one of the options that we'd suggested that they could do in order to go and regulate themselves. So it's really helpful that you can go back, and that is one of the official criteria of Carol Gray, is that it's called 9 to refine. So you can go back into the story and make these refinements and changes.
So they're very flexible, really. They sound
really good ideas. So you've got your results and you're not statistically significant. So are you planning doing some more research on this?
I mean, I think we're very passionate about social stories. So going back and looking at social stories is something that we would like to do. But there is quite a bit of literature and stuff out there already. And I don't know if we would have sufficient rationale that would convince a funder to give us money to sort of run this again. But there are other studies going on in other countries, certainly about social stories and how we can apply it.
Well, right. I mean, from doing your trial, have you found that the schools have actually adopted the social stories?
Well, that's something that we'd really like to go back and look at, because that's your sort of measure of impact, isn't it? That they're still using them. So we can only go on the conversations that came out of the process evaluation where they told us that they were sort of intending to continue using them. But we haven't been able to go back to those schools like a couple of years on and say, are you still using them now? But that is something that we'd really like.
That would be nice.
For something like this where you're quite passionate about and you think it makes a difference, it would be nice to see if the schools have implemented it. And
I think that's one of the good things about education research as well, isn't it? Is that the schools have the autonomy and the power to sort of roll out these interventions if they want to. Whereas even if you find something works really well sort of in an NHS setting, it's then quite difficult to cut through all the red tape and get that intervention translated into practice and for that to become like a recognised treatment. Whereas in schools, they have that autonomy and they can say, right, well, yeah, we like this. We can see the benefits of it. We're going to do it now. This is going to be our practice.
Yeah.
And the settings were left with all of the training materials. So they have got the materials to refer back to. I think another thing that came out of the process evaluation is that they said that they would find it useful to have like a social stories champion within school. So someone who attended regular ongoing training who could then support the other members of staff to continue delivering social stories. So just having that one, like, because as the research team, we've kind of disappeared now and can't provide that support in writing the social stories. So I think that's something that if we were looking at in the future and if they're still delivering it, would they find a social stories champion useful?
Yeah, sounds like we need an ASSIST 3. We need
it does sound like that. Yeah,
we need another installation.
3, I think you need to have a look into that.
We would love to do ASSIST 3 if that was a possibility.
That would be great. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for talking about that. I think it's been really, really interesting. It's great that you've got some results, and I'll champion ASSIST 3. I'll try and get it out there. Any funders listening, we want to do an ASSIST 3. But yeah, so now we're going to just do our little bit of fun. Yeah, we've got some random research questions for you that we've got in this hat, and we're going to pull them out and ask you them. Okay, Janine, you do the first one.
Oh my goodness, I just written these. What is your favourite type of chart or graph, and why?
Yeah, well, we like charts and graphs in the trials unit.
I'll let you go for that one, Kerry.
Well, I'm trying to think sort of like functionally which chart or graph would give you the most information. But for some reason, all I can see is a pie chart.
I'm thinking pie chart.
When someone says chart or graph, I just go straight to pie chart. But they're not actually that useful.
No, they're not.
Unless pretty, though.
They are, they're pretty. Unless they have the actual numbers on them that show you the sort of percentages of each of the sort of quadrants of the chart, then otherwise they're not that particularly useful.
A well-labelled pie chart.
A well-labelled pie chart.
I love it.
Yeah. Would you agree?
I'm just going to agree.
Are you
with
also a fan of a pie chart?
Well, I like in the TMD report the recruitment graph, especially when it's
going in the right
direction.
Oh, a recruitment graph. Yes, yeah.
One.
Going up.
Yeah, but I did say one that's going really well.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, so in your project, what's one thing that you wish you had more time to spend on?
I think it would be more time actually going into the schools, like we said.
Yeah.
So obviously that stopped, and I think both Kerry and I really enjoyed meeting the interventionists and the teachers, and where possible the parents and carers, and just getting a little bit more time to talk about the actual individual child, help shape the story, and then hear afterwards how it's gone. And it was lovely sort of getting feedback, even via email, that we've seen it make a difference.
It's so much better to be in person,
yeah.
isn't it?
So I think just that personal element of actually interacting with the schools and the staff and all of that's probably...
I totally agree. We had some really fantastic conversations, didn't we?
Yeah.
Especially when the parent carers were able to join as well. They really give us this extra layer of detail about the children that really helped the story writing and understanding where the issues might be coming from. Because the teachers sometimes had an idea of, why the children was anxious about certain things, but then the parent would come in and then they'd provide this explanation and everyone would be like, that explains it. And it was fantastic getting everyone together in one room and being able to have this really sort of detailed conversation about a child and how we can help them. And that did get lost through COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. What advice would you give to someone starting a similar project? Don't open it in COVID.
Well, I think based on the points that we've just made, in terms of getting the parents and the teachers and the interventionists together, would be to try and implement as many strategies as possible to get those parent carers involved, because their involvement was quite inconsistent. So some of the meetings, parent carers were able to come and sometimes they weren't. And the ones where they were there were so much better. So I think the best advice we could maybe give would be to try and implement as many strategies as possible to try and get those parent carers on board.
Another one I would say is, prior to COVID-19, we found for recruiting settings, holding these events like Twilight events, where we would invite settings from a particular area to come to a session where we would give an overview of the project. This was in person, just in a community hall or something. We put on teas and coffees and biscuits, talked about the project, got to meet the lead contacts from each school, and then provided them with the information sheets that they could go and talk to their other members of staff. And they actually were surprisingly really well attended. But they were actually really good at building that relationship, so that then when they returned their expression of interest to take part, we'd already met them and sort of built that relationship with the staff, which was really nice. And on some trials, you don't really have that personal, you don't have either the funding or the capacity to actually do that. But it was a really nice part of ASSSIST too. And I think it really helped with recruitment because they had met the team before deciding to sign up.
And also tea and biscuits.
And the tea and biscuits helped, I think.
That's your recommendation. Get some biscuits in.
Bring biscuits.
So we're all quite nerdy in the trials unit. What's the nerdiest thing that you do?
Oh, gosh. No one's going to look at me the same. So it's something. Well, I'm getting outside of work. Are we saying here?
Yeah.
I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer
over
and over again. I've seen it so many times. Honestly, like
my daughter used to love that.
And there's a musical episode, and I've got like the soundtrack in the car and everything. I legit know the whole episode. It's bonkers, but I think loving Buffy is a bit of a sort of nerdy thing, isn't it? But I like it. I love it.
I like it.
And I think
a Buffy lover.
I think there's a reboot that's potentially. Oh my God! I'd be so excited. If Buffy came back.
Oh my God, yeah, hopefully. Jane, what's yours?
Oh, well, I was thinking not nerdy outside of work. I was thinking like nerdy in work.
Either. It can be either. But
it's just
you can be nerdy
the level
everywhere.
Of organisation and the amount of lists I need to sort of keep. I would say that I'm nerdy in that way of having like loads of lists and loads of organisation.
How many to-do lists do you have on the go?
A lot. And there'll be like a personal one, a work one.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you lose them? Can I lose them? I do lists and I lose them.
Sometimes I write something on just to cross it off for that satisfaction.
I love doing that.
Oh, you love that,
I'm a big fan of writing something you've already done just to cross it off.
It's just nice to look at the end of the day and see that you've got through a few of your things on your list.
You write things you've already done to cross it off.
It's just that little bit of satisfaction.
What's the point of that?
Oh, it just makes me
happy. It just feels really good.
It's actually a recognised motivational strategy.
There you go. There you go.
It gets you going.
Right, I'm going to write a list of of things I've done and tick it off.
Do it. You'll feel great.
It gives you a sense of accomplishment before you actually start doing those sort of meaty tasks that you've got to do.
That you put off.
Yeah, it's a really good way of putting off.
Yeah.
Proper tasks. I love it. Right, should we do one more? We'll do a final one.
If your research had a mascot, what would it be?
Oh, well, I mean, this is already there.
Oh, you have
so Social Stories has a logo. It's a very interesting logo. So I think it's a parrot, isn't it?
And a pig.
A parrot and a pig.
Reading a book.
Yeah, reading a book.
That's quite cute.
I think in the research team that was based at Leeds and York Partnership Trust, who we were working with, and I originally worked there and then moved to the York Trials Unit as part of the trial. I think there was a competition within the office for all the different researchers to design it, and that one won. So
brilliant, right? Well, we've had enough of those questions, I think.
They were good. I thought your answers were really good.
Really good bit. But thank you so much for coming on. I thought that was really, really interesting. I'm really, really
thank you for having
Social
us.
Story.
Yeah.
Very welcome. Yeah, thank you for coming, joining us in the research room. And if people want to learn more about the project and about Social Stories, we'll put some information in the show notes and how they can get in touch.
And promotion for ASSSIST 3.
Yeah, it's already started.
Needs
I'm
to
go for it.
It needs to happen.